Hello, with last Friday's tragic bombing of the Nevsky Express between Moscow and St. Petersburg brought the total death to 25 people. Now, I usually do not use any script, but I'm just going to quote from Russia Today, okay, to prevent any misunderstandings, because it was mistakenly reported that the head of the Russian Federal Reserve bank was killed in the crash, but in fact it was the media reported that Boris Yevstrakov, the head of the Russian State's Reserve Agency. Now, this is responsible for the provision of fuel and extra resources to the states in times of crisis, or in times of when economic forces are driving a Russian company into bankruptcy, such as with a Russian airline recently. He was unfortunately killed, and so was Sergei Tarasov, a former senator of St. Petersburg. Okay, they were among the dead in the Nevsky Express. Now, that's all I'm reading from Russia Today. Okay, check that article out. There seems to be several strands of thought on this subject. Okay, well, firstly, Putin has a history with the Russian mafia, as being threatened by the Russian mafia. And of course he was in the KGB as well. So a Russian analyst said that he has numerous enemies who would like to see him take a political hit, or people close to him to suffer. And so Russia was rife with speculation about if it was a targeted assassination of those two individuals who were seen as close to Putin. Okay. Also, there was another reason for the personal motivation to be linked into the reason for the bombing. Okay. There was 1.5 kilos of heroin found in a suitcase on the train. Okay, but there's also the strong case for the Chechen link with the waning fortunes of a man called Umarov, if I said his name correctly. Now, he is a Wahhabist, but also a Chechen nationalist, and there's been a lot of conflict between him and his group and the clans in Dagestan and Ingushetia, where there's been recently a war between Russia and Georgia. Okay. Another clear indication that maybe Chechens were involved, or or some other group was doing a false flag to operation to make them seem to be involved, is the characteristic signature of using two explosive devices to derail a train, which is a classic Chechen technique to create maximum carnage as the train derails. Now, in 2007, 60 people were badly injured in a similar derailment at a similar site between Moscow and St. Petersburg on the Nevsky Express. And the reason for the link between that and the Chechens was strong. But there was also the small possibility that it might have been Slavic nationalists who would like to withdraw Russia into the Slavic heartland, which is adjacent to the to Europe, basically. Okay. The core between the Volga in the east and the Dnieper in the west. Basically, that's the heartland. Whereas the southern Caucasus are majority Muslim regions, and so Wahhabism exported there from Saudi Arabia is quite strong. Okay, it was completely different culture to the northwestern Russian people. Okay, and the further northwestern you get, the further closer to Finland and Scandinavia you get, the more European Russia becomes. Now, the link between Wahhabism is seems to be very strong. There was the person who was responsible for the derailment of the first train, which injured 60 people. It was proven was a group of 3 Russian soldiers who, 2 of whom converted to Islam and supplied the explosives to a third, who they then converted to radical Islam to plant the bomb and derail the train. Now, this new group that may have done, or this new group that may have done this bombing between the 2 Russian main cities of St. Petersburg and Moscow, maybe simply copycatting it. They might have that inspiration. The Russian nationalist link seems to be quite tenuous, because they would normally, if they've got no history of derailing trains, but they did plant a fake bomb in the St. Petersburg metro, okay, and that was linked to a group called Combat 18. Now, this isn't some sort of franchise of Combat 18 that's in Britain to Russia. It's simply somebody who copied the name and copied it. It turned out that the website belonged to a single person who was the sole member of this Combat 18. He's been in prison for 3 years. Now, that still does not necessarily leave out the possibility of oligarchs and the Russian mafia, who really are sort of one group. Because, of course, in the 1990s, when and early 2000s, when the Chechen war was raging, as Yeltsin tried to boost his own popularity with his supporters, just as this Umamov, who's been losing supporters, maybe trying to boost his profile, his PR with the Chechen and Wahhabist militant groups in the Caucasus. But of course, Putin finished this war, and so there's a lot of grudges against Putin, because the Russian mafia were exporting arms to the Chechens and working with the Chechens against the different political factions. So it wasn't really, it seems on the surface to be a nationalistic war against Chechen separatism, but really it was different Russian factions which had links to different Russian divisions fighting against one another in the early Yeltsin times. Of course, when Putin made it a national struggle, and of course the attacks by Chechen-linked terrorists on the Moscow cinema and other bomb attacks, and of course there's the case also that maybe rogue Russian agents planted bombs in the Moscow council house residencies, but you have to take this with a pinch of salt, because of course this was done by this was extorted by the oligarchs who fled Russia after Putin came in, but it's in a book called Blowing Up Russia, okay. So there's a lot of different complex things going on here, and all that can be certain is that Russia will either find the people it thinks are responsible, who may not really be responsible, or it will choose its biggest enemy out of those possible enemies, and it is already seeking to surround and destroy Umarov's group of Chechen fighters. We'll have to see what happens. My sympathy to all the victims of the bombing, and hope Russia gets the people who are responsible.